All right, we're going to get started. So you guys can continue to get your food, and this is hopefully going to be kind of a low-key time, a lot of conversation going on as we go through this presentation. But the topic for today is going to be Introduction to KC. KC, we actually have is a vital tool within MSU, and of course in the DER we use it every day, all day long. So we have a lot of our DER team members here, and I think we'll introduce everybody later. But I do want to introduce Mark Malcolm, who is one of our resident experts when it comes to KC. He was involved on the whole development side of KC and kind of the launching of that. So he's going to be here to present or interject any kind of comments or information as we go through the process of this presentation. So hopefully, if you have any questions at DER, is unable to answer them, Mark will be able to kind of answer on the bigger picture of the whole system and everything like that. So welcome to the presentation. Just a quick overview of what DER does and how this is incorporated into the KC process. And so if you look at this kind of slide, just a quick note, we're going to send out the slides later as well, so we have those kind of reference material. So don't feel like you have to write everything down. You'll get all the screenshots as well. But this is the process in which the PI gets involved with DER and then all the way through to submission of proposal, and even in the postal world. And so a PI works to develop an idea with a co-investigator or something like that. They work with the department chair, and ultimately they submit to PPF, proposal processing form, to DER, and then that's where we get involved. And so we work with the PIs and to develop their budgets, different things like that. Ultimately, help them to draft a KC document, and then we move on from there. The proposal's finalized, they complete the technical documents. Cost shares approved, or we receive documentation on that. We get the budget approved through OSP. We route the proposal, and it ultimately goes on from there into a routing process and so on and so forth. And ultimately to the point of proposal submission. And so just to kind of help you understand where DER is involved in this process, we're highly involved in pretty much all of it. So. Kelly is going to talk a little bit about our updated proposal timelines.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Martin, your director, and we are here to talk about our new proposal timeline requirement. So, as everyone knows, the Office of Sponsored Programs sets our timeline for all proposals. That all proposals, if it is 3 days until it's due, it's late, 1 day it's at risk, and it needs Dr. Jennifer Boncourt or Dean's office approval. So what we do to back into those numbers is 10 days before your proposal is due, we need you to notify us. We need you to give us your information, submit your PPF. We need to let OSP know. 6 days before, we need to finalize your budget justification, your statement of work. We would like to start your routing. That is OSP's standard. We have found in the College of Engineering that more than half of our proposals do not meet that standard, and more than half of our proposals are within 3 days of the proposal deadline. So because of that, this yellow line, we're instituting a new rule for the college starting November 1st. So all proposals that are due November 1st or after, we are requiring all non-technical documents 5 days before your proposal is due. So this is to ensure that we have more time to review your documents, that OSP has more time. As we've submitted so many late proposals within a college, there just hasn't been review time. We would never want any of your proposals to get submitted and not reviewed, and then therefore not funded. So 5 days before your due date on your proposal, all of your non-technical proposals are due. Question? Yes.
Will you be informing the platform on this?
We have put it into our newsletter, we put it on our website, and we will send more communication out about it. We have also been telling all faculty that are currently working on a proposal that do not have their stuff into us 5 days. We're not enforcing it right now, but we're reminding them that they would not meet this after November 1st. Question?
Yes, so what documents are considered not?
So we will leave it up to the PI and the research administrator. So, but in general, current and pending, not a technical document. your biosketch, not a technical document. Anything related to facilities, your budget justification, not a technical document. Anything related to your science, we would like you to give that to us 30 days before it's due. We have had a question about what about the references? If you need to finalize your references as you're finalizing your technical document, we understand. So we're flexible in terms of what is technical, but if it's related to your science, then we want to give you as much time as possible. But if it's not, really your current and pending, your biosketch, your budget justification, your facilities, any other common documents you guys can think of, we really like those earlier. What we don't want to happen is we've had several proposals recently that went late and at risk because we just couldn't get a few things finalized, like your biosketch or your facilities document. And there's no reason we can't get those earlier. We understand that you're working on your science, and sometimes you need the weekend to think about that and get that finalized. With everything else, we'd like to finalize them earlier.
COA is another document.
Excuse me?
A COA document for myself.
Yes. Any other questions about that?
I have a question about
Yes.
that. Have you done benchmarking against other universities to see if that's a common practice or not?
We actually are modeling, we looked at lots of universities in Michigan, and so we're modeling this a little bit after Michigan Tech's policy. We have talked to, through the Society for Research Administrators and the National Council of University Research Administrators, NACURA, we found that we have one of the most generous policies related to having your proposals done. For example, our colleagues at University of Michigan, they require their proposals to research administrators much earlier than we do. So the 3 days and the 1 day, which is our MSU University policy, is pretty generous. I mean,
No,
Do
some of the other
anything to add?
schools that at least use the quality system, we're a little, further down.
we're very generous.
5 days is generally in OSP, is a lot of the standards that I've seen from other universities.
What we're
And so then just to
yeah,
follow up on that, then, does that mean that you'll have our final budget done 5 days before?
absolutely, yes. As long as we, as long as you're meeting this 10 days, we should have your budget 5 days before, no problem. We want to have your budget done, your budget justification done, we'll get that to OSP. Any other questions about this policy? Now, you may say, what are the exceptions? If you are working on a proposal that does not have a solicitation, that does not have a deadline, then of course, 5 days before no deadline means we still need 5 days to get it done, but there's no deadline. If you're working on an industry proposal that doesn't have a solicitation, if you're working on a fee-for-service proposal, or GIFT proposal that doesn't have a hard deadline, of course, we're not going to hold you to this. If you are working with the program officer that calls you and says, we would like you to submit and we really need you to get this in tomorrow, we're not going to hold you to this because we want you to get the funding. But if you are going after a competitive solicitation, there's an RFP, there's a date, we need your non-technical documents no more than 5 days before it's due. Any questions? If you're unsure as you're going through, can I, am I eligible for an exception? I have a solicitation. So this new 5-day policy will be very similar to the at-risk policy where you'll have to ask the dean's approval to move forward. What we're trying to eliminate is right now we have several at-risk proposals that go through, and we've spent a lot of time on them in DER. You've certainly spent a lot of time on them, and we're asking for approval at the very last minute just so we can get it through. But we've had no time to review. OSP has had no time to review. We're really trying to eliminate that. We're doing a check at the 5-day mark. Do you have all your non-technical documents in? Is your budget done? Are we really going to meet the deadline and have time to do a quality review of all of your documents or your proposal so it can go in at time? Any other questions?
I do have one question.
Yes.
It's just that, so I mean, if we start 10 days before and then you give us a budget back in 5 days, that means by default, that's the final budget, otherwise.
We don't take 5 days to give you a budget though. You come to us 10 days and you give us your budget information. We may have to go back and forth with you, but we should have your budget to you much sooner than that. Anyone want to add anything about?
I would say this is
budget
just,
process?
a lot of times the PIs will get us stuff way in advance. So this is kind of the late window, or getting, to the final window of it. But a lot of the faculty, they want to submit early, so we're definitely trying to accommodate that as well.
All right, so I'd add a couple things to what Kelly's saying, just to kind of put a fine point on it. But, getting things in on time really helps us all do our best work to make sure you get your proposals reviewed and approved. And so that's, where we want to work with you and partner with you through that process. Secondly, many of your documents can be set up for the future, right? I mean, you can get the information in, at the current and pending, really you're just going to be adding that last piece, which is this proposal. So a lot of those docs can be redone. So what we're going to do today, leading into this slide, is these are the areas we're going to cover today. These are the areas that are most often used by you when you're in KC. One of the things I want to point out, first of all, is that in the next slide, you're going to see, and in the next slide and the ones going forward, you're going to see in your upper right-hand corner, these topic areas. And that'll help you kind of keep track. And then later when you have the opportunity to watch the video and see the slide deck, you'll be able to come back to those pieces. Secondly, just highlighting a couple of these things like system required questions, that greatly impacts the kind of forms that you need to include. So it's really critical when you're going through that to make sure those questions are answered. Your opportunity to get into KC and review your proposal, again, that's really important. And then going back to kind of that timeline, the more time, the more we meet our deadlines, the more time you have to review that proposal. So we're going to look at that. And then also, searching your current and past proposals. And that takes us to this slide, which is, are those in the next? Yes, okay. So when you log into KC, this is the first screen you're going to see. And I talked about in the last slide about the search proposals. That's right here. And then the red arrows are kind of telling you those are the areas that you're going to use the most when you're in KC. And again, the KC system helps us help you create great proposals. So just take a quick moment to note their location, because throughout this presentation, we're going to be referring to those particular topics. So here's where your proposal starts. This is a really critical piece, and one that will help us kind of meet that 5-day, make sure that your budgets are ready prior to your 5 days, all that kind of stuff. Whether this is NSF, NIH, DARPA, whatever kind of proposal it is, it all starts here. This is, and so what I would point out to you, probably the big takeaway from this slide is information equals speed. The more information that you give us, the more detail, the quicker we can get information back to you, the quicker we can get information into KC, and that's pretty critical. And one particular area where that really makes a difference is the comments area. You can add your budget requests, your budget thoughts, your considerations right there in the comments section. That allows us immediately to start working on that budget for you. It allows us to get it to you quicker. Are there any questions on those 3 slides? I probably should give you a chance on each slide. But
Yeah, I tried to fill PDF before. My title is actually longer than the wording given before. And I had to put the title in the comment section below. Yeah, but it looks like the DER administrator working with me wasn't aware of that.
Oh.
He asked me what's the official title again, so I was wondering if the comment section would be actually helpful in terms of these calculations?
So we always look at the comments section, and the only recommendation, and you may have done this in the comments section, but, highlight that, this title, as I put it in there, is not, I didn't have enough space, so here is the actual full title, and that gives us the ability to catch that. But, yeah, so it's,
Yeah, okay, I guess I just didn't highlight it.
okay.
It's probably the case. I didn't say the titles, but I didn't say this. Because it's still used in incomplete title, so I guess it's, I'll highlight it.
Well, we're all human, of course, and sometimes,
Yeah,
so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
If you have any issues with the PPF, please let us know. That field, the title field wasn't long enough, we will get that fixed. So we'll implement that change this week. So I want to talk to you a minute about keywords. So on your PPF, there is a section where you can add keywords to your proposal. Some people add keywords, some people don't. It's not a required field in KC, but the more keywords you add, the easier it will be to search proposals in the future. So this is something that we've not used in the past, but we have had requests from faculty members. Can you please pull a list of all proposals for us related to autonomous vehicles? And we can look in your title, but if you don't put keywords in, we can't run any kind of report. So if you have an area that you think we're going to need to pull something subject-based in the future, we need you to add keywords. It strengthens your proposal. We can find like topics, highlights area of strength. So one question we get is the PPF. You may not be able to read this slide. That looks a little small, but what we're trying to show you is, should we turn the lights on in the back? In the PPF, the longest portion is the questions. In engineering, most of the answers to those questions are no. Do you work with animal subjects? Do you work with kids? There's a lot of different questions. Is this an international proposal? You may be tempted to just fill them out, no, and don't worry about it. And if it's yes, you'll come back and fix it later. Please answer those questions correctly, because we put all of that information, those questions are required in KC. We don't ask you anything in the PPF that's not required in KC. So once we put that information into KC, it triggers other things. If it's an international proposal, it triggers that we have to ask you what country you're doing business in. It also triggers the routing needs to go through Dr. Beck's international office. It also triggers that Marianne Walker needs to look at that proposal. If it works with animals, then it triggers something on the special review tab. So please answer those questions correctly. So many of you see this email in KC. When it's time to do your conflict of interest or approve your proposal, this is the email that you received. Does anyone have any questions about this email or the content of it? Has anyone had any issues? Please know in KC, you can turn off your emails. So you might have a proposal that needs to be approved, but if you turn off your email, you're not going to receive this, and your proposal is not going to go forward. So if you are continually putting proposals in, then we need to make sure that your emails are on. We also have had some issues in the past. If you route your email, this is your MSU email. If you route it through something else, Gmail or somewhere else, please make sure these emails are not going to spam. So the important parts of this are the links to get to your proposal. Now, if you misplace this email, which happens quite often, you can get it through your action list. So go right to your action list, and everything that you've been emailed is on your action list. The action list has links. So your action list looks like this when you click on the item, and you can easily click right to the item to approve it or do the conflict of interest. So those are the links that you click on to get to your proposal.
I have a question.
The document ID, so the one that's right there beside the red
Yes.
arrow, you can click that document ID as well. So you don't have to click show to get to open proposal. You can click on the document ID and it'll take you directly to the document as well. So it'll take you to the.
Great, thanks, Mark. Any questions about the action list?
I have one.
Oh, question on Zoom?
The question is basically, could you share screen? Because we can't really see the screen, we just see you.
Can you share?
We need to use the share screen feature so we can see your screen.
Open up the presentation. Go in. Hold on, let me see. We will open up the screen for the people on Zoom to make sure that we're on the same slide.
This is on this computer.
We'll provide the slides to you after the presentation. I apologize that you can't see the screen very well. So for your proposal, when you click on your action list, you can pull up the actual proposal in KC. And there are a number of tabs. Robert is going to go through an actual proposal in KC. Yes, question,
Sorry.
Rebecca?
I should have asked it earlier. So the emails that you go back and forth between the person helping you, what's the ID number that you can actually input into KC for your proposal?
The PD number.
PD number. That PD number is the document ID or the proposal number?
It is the proposal number.
Proposal. So what's the document ID?
Mark, can you talk a little bit about the document ID?
Yeah, basically every document in KC or KFS has a unique document ID. And so there was a field that's called doc search. And you can use the doc search and you can put the document ID in the doc search. So KFS and KC are a little bit different in that in KC, everything, we have a proposal number, an institutional proposal number, award number, those types of things. In KFS, most people just search off of document ID. So I think campus has gotten used to this idea of document ID because of KFS. So every document has that document ID. And if you look up in the top right corner, it says doc number, which is the same as the document ID. So
that's separate from the proposal.
both of them will get you there. So there's the document ID will get you to this proposal or that proposal number 34776.
In
Well,
DDR,
one works in the doc search, the other one works in the proposal search. Proposal search is PD number, doc search is doc.
we exclusively work with PD numbers. We know what the doc numbers are, but every time we're sharing a number, our ticket system, everything we reference is always the PD number.
So that number is in the subject of the DER.
Yes, yes,
So if you wanted to search KC, you would do a proposal search.
yes, and we're gonna show you that screen, yes. So Robert is going to show you how to navigate in KC.
Okay. So for this, I'm actually going to X out of the PowerPoint and I'm going to go into the live system. So this will kind of help you a little bit. KC requires two-factor authentication to get into the system, so you want to make sure that you use two-factor to get into the system. Also, you'll see on the screen there's, as we go forward, you'll see expand all and I don't know what the other term is used, collapse all. That's one helpful tool so you can actually see more stuff on the screen. But Dr. Verbonkor was willing to let us use one of his proposals, so I'm going to go ahead and put in this one here. So down here at the bottom, we've done a search for the PD number. And so down here at the bottom, you see a spot where it says edit, view, copy, Medusa. These are ways to take you within the system. This one's already been submitted. It's been routed completely and it's already been submitted. So we're not going to have the ability to edit at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and click on here just so we can see, have the tools that we want to use to review the proposal. All right, right across the top, you're going to see a number of things. You're going to see different tabs, kind of referenced in that previous screenshot. But these are different places where you can actually reference materials related to your proposal. So if you're reviewing your proposal to approve your routing, you want to make sure that you navigate through these tabs so that way you can actually see, okay, what am I approving? And so there's a lot of helpful places in here in which you can see things. And so ultimately, you want to navigate this to make sure that you are putting your stamp of approval on what it is that you are. Okay? The first tab here, this proposal tab, is where we have a lot of the valuable information. So you'll see here's your PD number. You'll have information related to the sponsor. If we're a sub on a proposal, then you have a prime sponsor as well. Different things like that, the title of the proposal, project start and end date, et cetera, et cetera. Keywords going here at the bottom. But you'll see a question on here, is there subs on this proposal? So that's obviously going to be important to what you're doing. Opportunity title, if it's a system-to-system proposal, which means that we're submitting it through grants.gov, system-to-system way, then ultimately that information has to be documented here as well. All these things could impact your proposal in a major way, so you want to make sure that you're double checking this process when you're doing the routing approval. Like David said, we're human, so there's times when we do miss things, and you may check a box incorrectly. Key personnel. So this is where your credit split comes in. So on this particular proposal, there's only one PI, which is Dr. Verbancourt. He is a sub on the proposal, so he's getting 100% of the credit. But this is where you would see multiple PIs listed. So you could see if this is supposed to be broken down by a credit split of 40-60 or something, and you can identify that there as well. Unit contacts, another place that we use to who's going to be involved in who's designated key people for the proposal. Yep. So you can see here down at the bottom, I believe Kelly was the one who had worked with him on this particular proposal. But you can see there's a pre-award unit contact, fiscal officer, award contact, so on and so forth. And so these are people that are pulled into the process as well. Next tab, special review. This would be this special reviews tab used for things like human subjects, animal subjects, international activities, so on and so forth. So when you look at this, you would see things listed here as regarding, okay, if there's human subject on here, has been listed as pending approval. So that's what you definitely want to check that out. Custom data tab, this is where you would see if there's any voluntary cost share, any notes related towards that. That would go right in that box there. Abstract and attachments, this is where we put, if it's a system-to-system proposal, the vast majority of your documents get attached here. So you have internal attachments, I'm sorry, your proposal attachments, personnel attachments would be a file sketch, things like that. Internal attachments, if we're routing this and it's only going to be seen by MSU, then we go into internal, et cetera, et cetera. Notes at the bottom would be any kind of special notes that, for postal work we need to have access to, we would put those in there as well. Yep. So you can see here under internal attachments, since we were a sub on this particular proposal, we have a sub recipient commitment form, and so that's listed there. When OSP does a review, they're going to actually look at these documents, and it's going to be part of the review process. And so if all of a sudden there's a document here that's not adequately taken care of or completed, they're going to push it back to us. We're going to say you need to change this. And so we want to make sure that you look at the stuff, are all the attachments in the appropriate places? If they're not, then you want to make sure you notify us of that or you make a correction there. In some cases, before we start the routing process, we have to have a placeholder in place for those documents. We start the routing, then we can't go and add a new document and leave the placeholders. Ideally, we don't route a proposal until it's complete or 99.9% complete, just for the purpose of when the reviews process is going, the department chair, the dean, whoever's reviewing it, they're reviewing incomplete documents, they shouldn't be stamping on those things. But you'll see in here, are the documents attached that you wanted to have attached? You can ultimately see are they the final documents as well. Here's the questions tab. So this is your spot where we talked about that long list of questions on the proposal processing form. Here they go. So there's a long list here. We take that and we transfer it right in. If you answer yes to a question, sometimes sub-questions pop up. So then we'll add additional questions in here as well. If we're doing a system-to-system proposal, so for NIH, for example, it's going to incorporate, once we pull in the package off grants.gov, it's actually going to add additional questions. And so then we'll send those to you, to the faculty to have them answer and have those additional responses required. Next one here, budget version. So you can see here, it's kind of grayed out. And you'll see that the budget was finalized. It was marked approved by OSP. And so You can see Don Wilcox is listed here as being the person who approved the budget, so you'll know it's somebody outside of DER did that. And then, of course, here's your dollars and stuff like that. If you wanted to actually go back and view the budget, you click open, and then you could do a print review and those kind of things to see what's actually in the budget. Permissions, I'm not going to go into that tab, but that where you can add additional persons as an aggregator on the proposal, et cetera, et cetera. The last two places I want to highlight is proposal summary. So this is kind of a snapshot of the entire proposal. One thing I want to point out here is we often have faculty say that my project-specific conflict of interest questions get recorded in the system. This is where you would look at to see that. You would click on show there, and then it would say no conflict, or it would say pending if you just answered the questions. But this will tell you right there, it'll say, did you answer the conflict of interest questions? There's the answer right there. No conflict exists. Yep.
That information is only going to show up after you do your project-based disclosure. So when you're reviewing it, you review it first and approve it, and then the system transitions you into that, and I think you're probably going to get to that. But when you're approving that proposal, that information will be there for you because you haven't done project-based.
Right. So step 2 in the process.
Generally, I mean, there's a way to do that, but the way the system walks you through it is to approve the proposal and do
We're going to talk more about that in just a little bit here. And the proposal action, you can actually see the routing on here, which is something that we look at very closely to make sure is it stalled in the routing. Obviously, the routing is what kind of gets us to the finish line, so we have to make sure that the routing does not stall. And so if it ever gets stalled, we're going to reach out to that person or people who are listed in that particular order of approval. You can actually see on here quite a long list of people who were involved. So you can see here's the aggregate person who created the proposal document initially, and then it goes through a routing process where each of these kind of goes up the ladder in responsibility down to the point where OSP then is at the bottom line here, where they say finalize and ultimately submit. So that is the quick version of this. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time. So, and then the last one on here is the Medusa tab, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Medusa tab kind of brings everything together. So if you get different proposal type numbers related to your proposal, you're going to see a long list of your things that you can actually get to all in the same spot.
So for the attachments, all of the supplementary documents, is that only accessible by the PI, or if you're a co-I on the proposal? Because I noticed when I was just a co-I, I couldn't see any of the attachments.
Yes, you can see all of them. If you can get into the proposal, you can see everything on it.
I can download all the attachments.
Yeah, you can do that, yes.
So you showed us all this, and it's got all these different, approvals for pay raises, pay levels that are way above me. So what am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to? I don't care if the vice president sign off on this. Where am I supposed to approve something?
So you're going to approve it out. This is just kind of so you can review the documents or review the proposal. Ultimately, when you go to actually do your approval, you're going to go to your action list. And you're going to see that link in there. You'll see a drop down and actually say to or approve button on the screen. With this, we're trying to just give you an idea of to know that these information pieces are out there, so that way, before you do your approval, you can feel confident in the fact that that you're stamping the approval on it. And so when you get that email, you're going to see. So Kelly kind of referenced the earlier. You got an email for the routing approval. You're going to see a link right on there that says takes you right into KC to approve. And so you kind of follow that through. The conflict of interest is the second email that you get. You're going to follow that through. It'll take you right in the process. Otherwise, you go to your action list and see if they're resolved. Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things this illustrates is the different layers of checks and balances that we go through to make sure that the proposal is accurate. One of those pieces is you looking through it as the PI or co-PI to make sure that your pieces are accurate. It all looks good when it's printed out. That's why we're going through all those pieces.
And so one last thing I want to give you as a resource, OSP has actually put together a tutorial guide for reviewing a proposal. And so in here, you can see a screenshot of what the page looks like. I printed out 10 copies of it, so if you want a printed copy, you're welcome to have one. But this kind of talks you through and kind of gives you screenshots of where to click and where to point to see different things. And so I think this is a helpful tool for helping enable you to be confident in the fact that you do your reviews. So if anybody wants one of these, I can definitely give you one.
So The reason that we show you the routing is the most common question we get from faculty members after they have done their approval is, what happens next? Where is my proposal? How, is it ready to go? Is it submitted? And so seeing that route log, you can see after you approved it, where it is in the process. You can always call DER and get that information. Dr. Gates. You can always see that. We just want you to know, you can always call us to get the information, but you can also look at it yourself too. There's not a different place that we would check the status of your proposal. So next, I just wanted to make a plug about the credit split. Why is this important? That right now we're going through the process of research expenditures. So other colleges may look at other things. They may look at your number of proposals submitted, your awards. They want to know the total of your proposals. Within the College of Engineering, those items are important, but the most important item that we look at is research expenditures. Research expenditures are a combination of how much you have spent per year on an award and your PI profile and your credit split within the proposal. So if you are a faculty member who is 100% computer science and you are the only person on that award, you will get 100% of credit for those research expenditures for that year. But if you're on a proposal with 5 other people and you only have 20% of the credit for that proposal, you're only going to get 20% of the research expenditure credit. And then if you have a PI profile that is split 50% computer science and 50% mechanical engineering, those are going to be split. So all of those things go into research expenditures. It's very important that if you don't look at anything else when you approve your proposal, please look at the credit split. Are you getting the credit that you think you deserve for the proposal based on the work that you're going to do, especially if you're working on it with other people, especially if you're working on it with people from other colleges? When you submit the PPF, you're providing the credit split to us. DER is not going to question it. If you tell us that you should be 50% and your co-I should be 50%, that's how we're going to put it into the proposal. But if you do not submit the PPF, if it goes through another college or another PI, please make sure that your credit split is correct. It's very difficult for us to correct it in the systems later if it's not correct. So what usually happens is when the research expenditures come through, which we're reviewing them right now, so if you're not familiar with your research expenditures, please work with your post-award staff on that to review them. They say my research expenditures are much lower than I expected. And what happens is when we go back to the original PB, or in the past it was an app, that the credit split was different than the PI remembers or different to what they agreed to. So please make sure that it's correct. Any questions about credit split? Oh, okay, thank you. All right, I am turning this over to Rebecca.
Hi, I'm happy to be quick, so I'm probably there. I'm going to talk to you about, I think what Robert, Kelly, and Mark mentioned is that there's a lot of ways to accomplish the same things in KC with approval and also with conflict of interest. So you've probably seen this email for your project-based disclosures that you're required to fill out for every project. That Mark talked about in the project summary. You'll need to complete that before everything will show up. So you get an email, you complete it that way. That's option 1. Or you can, so you see that red arrow right there. Or you can go into KC, if you're familiar, you want to get better at KC, you can go into this as a researcher tab, and you can click complete disclosure for a research proposal. And so anything active that you need to complete will show up on there. So that screen will look like this. You see the PD number, like Robert mentioned, the title, who the sponsor, the start date, and the action that you need to take. So it's kind of similar to your action list. You can get there from your action list too, right? You need to hit a CY.
No, you would still need to come to here. I think probably the easiest way in the system to do it is once you go into your action list to approve your proposal, you go into the proposal development document. You answer your key person certification questions, because you guys don't, that's not something that PPF, is it? Oh, yeah, so you guys already filled those in?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so all you have to do is actually click approve.
But when you approve, yeah.
Yeah, so you're clicking approve, then the system will pop up a screen that says you've successfully submitted your proposal development document. Click OK to continue to the project-based disclosure. Click OK, your project-based disclosure will automatically open up. You can complete that information. There's a couple of questions to be answered about, do you have any significant financial interest? Do you have any financial entities that you need to declare anything on? You can. At the bottom, there's a checkbox. You check the box. A submit button then pops up once you've checked the box. You click the submit button, and another screen will pop up that says you've successfully submitted your your project-based disclosure. At that point, you're also given the option to do an update to your annual. The annual has to be done every 12 months. So if you do the update at that point, your clock, 12 months starts over again. So you won't get bugged by the system without going in and doing the annual disclosure. So you can do that as well. So there's several different options there, but it's kind of all step by step that the system should walk you through, going from your proposal to your project-based disclosure to your. But if something were to happen and you needed to, you can go to that link. And
It's
then,
like right on the KC main page, researcher tab. Thank you. That's very good explanation. Thank you. So here's what it looks like. As Mark mentioned, you have to answer a few questions and then click checkbox that you're certifying it and then submit. Any questions about COI? Seeing none, we're going to move on. And now we're going to talk about searching proposals, how to search for current past proposals. As you asked earlier, the PD number we use a lot. So you can search for PD number, you can search by IP, you can search by a lot of different pieces of data, whatever you have available. So when that's the search proposal button, and there's also a search institutional proposal, we kind of work pre-award with the search proposal button. So if you click that, or the search IP, and you'll see this screen. Right at the top is where you put the proposal number, the PD number, the 5-digit number that is in every subject of every email that we send you. You can also search by a lot of different options here. You see title, investigator, sponsor code, and they have, some of them have the little magnifying glasses, what you call those. We have those magnifying glasses where if you need to look up a certain sponsor, you can find that and then fill in that sponsor directly and then search by that sponsor. So, and then also I would recommend using wildcards a lot on little stars that if you know that your proposal title included the word autonomous vehicle, but you can't remember the whole thing, then you type the little star in front of it, 4 words, and the star after it. Now, return everything that has autonomous vehicles anywhere that you get familiar with. Wildcards. Yes.
Is there a choice between the pending one and the funded one?
Yes, there is. That would be would that be institutional proposals? Yeah. Okay. So that is, we have.
We're going to go over that with the
Yeah, we're going to go over that at a subsequent seminar, but there is a way. If you click, go back to the screen here, the institutional proposals. If you click that one, a big, very similar way to search drops down.
yeah, there's another one. So under proposals, that third link says all my proposals. If you click that all my proposals link, it will take you to the institutional proposal search. And it'll put your name in the investigator field, and then all you have to do is click search, and then the result will come back specifically for you, and you can see which ones are pending, which ones are funded. Oh, for your department? Then you can do the institutional proposal search, and then go in, there's a unit number field, and you type in your unit number and then search.
And we will go over that in our next seminar.
And I think one of the selections for criteria, you can search by ones that are funded and ones that are unfunded, correct?
Correct, yes. There's a proposal status.
Yeah. And so the last thing I want to mention is the Medusa tab. This is the Medusa tab. We're having a subsequent seminar about Medusa. You'll see the flyer, you can't miss it. It's going to take you, so it has a PD number on here. Once you've submitted the proposal, You'll be assigned an institutional proposal number, you'll submit assigned an award number, as Mark mentioned. All those will be right here. Any revisions, any continuation, any supplements will show up on this tab. So it can be really helpful if you know the PD number but not the award number, if you know the award number, not the PD number, etc. So you can find a lot of different information from this tab. So stay tuned for our next time about that.
Before Ziva talks about the QC preferences, I got a question during the presentation about our new deadline policy for the College of Engineering and how it compares to the University of Michigan. So I just want to make sure being clear, not presenting any alternative facts to anyone. So what we're asking in the College of Engineering is please submit all of your non-technical documents 5 days before it's due. Now, at the University of Michigan, their research and sponsored projects office, which is comparable to our Office of Sponsored Programs, has deadlines of 4 days and 5 days based on different parts of the proposal too. So you cannot compare our 5-day policy to their 4 and 5 day policy, because at Michigan State, our Office of Sponsored Programs has a 3-day policy. So our 3-day policy before your proposal is due is still more generous than their 4 and 5 day policy. So our 5 days, although it is more than U of M's overall policy, it is very likely that all of their colleges and departments have much earlier deadlines, just as we do. But what we're trying to accomplish with the 5-day policy is to get all of your documents ready in order and have it routed to meet the university's 3-day policy. So I apologize if I wasn't quite clear. I just wanted to address that question that came in during the presentation.
Are there any questions about CUI, Medusa, or research and proposals, or just in general? All right, we're going to hand it off to Ziva.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a useful feature in KC to update your preferences. So here you'll see under workflow, under preferences, you can go from there, or also from the action list, there's a place to update your preferences from there as well. So in this area, it'll look like this. You're able to update your, to see what you have in your action list, how often your action list is refreshed, what fields are displayed in your action list, and then also an important area is the email notifications that you receive. You want to make sure that, if you want to, for example, check to see when certain things are completed, that you get an email for that as well. So down here, you would check mark complete, approve, acknowledge, and FYIs to make sure you're getting those emails. Another useful feature is that you can color code the different areas that you see in the action list. The default right now is set to white. There's some pretty colors, oranges, pinks. And so yeah, so the most important feature is the email notifications. Make sure you're getting those. And then just ensure that you're pressing save so that those are actually for you. A lot of what we discussed today, there's also training available on the OSC website. If you go to their website, there's a tab up there under resources and training, and you would specifically pick the training for KC. There's a lot of useful videos and links as well on that page.
So I just wanted to give a little plug for some of our upcoming seminars. So as mentioned today, our next two are both also about KC. The first one being data and reporting, and then the following one on October 24th about the Medusa tab. So just something really exciting that we're going to have the next 2 Wednesdays, so make sure that those are in your calendar, and those will also be in the newsletter this Friday. Just to go over a few of the seminars we've already had, and then in the future, just to kind of get your brain excited and ready for what DR's putting on. Here's some of our first seminars, and we also do have, as I mentioned, the research and expenditures, and then you can use the tab expert controls and innovation seminars on energy and efficient transportation systems that are coming up. And then these dates will all be on our website, so you guys can look for those there as well. Do you guys have any questions on the upcoming? I'll make sure you get up. And then just as you can see all of us up here, this is our staff of engineering research and DER. And then here is our contact information. Also, we got Marcus Mountain on the bottom here, just in case, or if you want any of his information to really get in depth on any KC questions. And then,
Any additional questions about KC that we can answer today?
that's for you.
Yes.
I remember last year we made the switch when we were doing our faculty annual reporting. There was an issue with, and I think this was so early on in the switch, I forget if it was the proposals or the expenditures. Like, has that been resolved?
So there, what happened last year is, so Mark and his team met with the DEX team, and there was a break in the link between CGA's data and the FAIS, the Faculty Administrative Information System, where it wasn't pulling. They have met, and we're really waiting on DEX to fix that link. They have assured us it's going to be fixed by January for the faculty annual reports. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're working with DEX, and we hope that to be fixed, but really that's a DEX issue.
So our KC questions, do we go to you?
Send,
or do
bring
we
your
go to their
KC,
support
yes,
as a
bring your
university?
KC questions to me.
Okay.
You can also take a KC question to any research administrator, but if you send them to me, what we do is we keep track of what the issues are in the college, and then there are a few outlets, meetings. We have a RASIC meeting, which is Research Administration System.
Implementation Committee.
So each college has a seat at the table, and we talk about QC, what is working and what is not working for us. So if I hear from multiple faculty, hey, I don't like this screen, this is not working for me, then I voice that at the bigger meetings and I ask them to make a change. So the KC team has been pretty good at responding to our requests for changes. Recently on the screen, the summary screen in a KC proposal, you couldn't see the prime sponsor. So you could see the sponsor, but if we were going through another university, you couldn't see that the sponsor was Arizona State and the prime sponsor was Minnesota. And so that was confusing because faculty would have to click around to see it. And so we told the KC team it was confusing, and they added that field for us. So if there are things that you don't like about KC, please let me know, and we'll talk about that internally at the college, but we're asking for a lot of changes from the system.
There is a help desk, and we have an email address as well, and our phone number is 355-2000. So Casey has one, but the human service stuff does as well. So if you call that number, it'll say option 1, so you can see option 2 is click, just click option 1, and you can get to us. If you really think it's a system question, I mean, you're hearing Kelly say she wants this stuff to come through her, and that's okay. I just also want to mention though, that we do have a help desk that is available from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, and then we have an email address and we will respond to those as well.
We may send you to the help desk if you call and say, hey, I can't log in, there's a system issue, or I'm getting this error screen. There are things that we can't fix. But if it's, I don't know how the system works, or I don't like this part of the system, what we're finding is there's a lot of user errors, or people just don't quite understand how to navigate, then let us know, because maybe that's something that we can request to make it easier, as opposed to an error like, hey, I don't know why the system gave an error. Because we're getting those occasionally too.
Any normal web browser compatibilities?
No.
What about mobile?
Now, I will say this.
I can't imagine looking at that on mobile.
There you go. So,
I look it on my phone every day. It's not that bad. I've not had any issues.
no. In my
It's
opinion,
small.
there's not a mobile app for it. Yeah, I don't suggest it.
It's
I
small, but
had
it
to do it
works.
last night to do
I'm
something.
just thinking, like, if you're on the road and you need a quick approval. from
You
the
can
phone,
approve it on your phone.
I would say
No
approving
issues.
is probably the easiest action list, you get to the document, scroll down and find it. But I mean, it showed buttons to expand this. It was not mobile.
Any other questions? Any questions about what we're going to talk about in the next seminar for Medusa or recording? All right, thank you for coming. Take some breadsticks back to your office, please.
We can decide.